Hello, welcome to the video. Today we have Russ and we're going to be filming his M4. We're going to be doing a comparison video with the M2 competition. So, also it's Lewis Hamilton. We're going to be supporting him today. F1 is back. And I need the hat because my hair is absolutely awful. So, quick one. Russ, tell us a little bit about the car. How long have you had it, etc, etc.
I've had it about 5 weeks or so from Cotswold BMW. Going pretty well so far. And
is it completely stock?
Yeah, completely standard at the minute. Might do a few cosmetic mods in the near future. Probably leave it alone for the minute for sort of like tuning or anything, but maybe no in the future I might look into that.
And what's the spec on it? Why did you choose the M4? What did you come from before that?
I had an M135i before,
nice.
So I had for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And then I just fancied a change, so an M car was always like a car that I've always wanted since I've been driving, so I felt like it was good progress step to go up to that, really.
It's like a natural progression, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like, so hot hatch gang, we love that, you know, M140, M135, up to an M4, up to an M2 comp. If I'm just going to quickly look at the two cars, the M4 isn't really that much longer than the M2. And I know a lot of people say that, you know, it's supposed to apparently feel more boaty, and the M2 is supposed to be more nimble. But that's what we're going to find out today, because, you know, looking at it, it's not really that much longer. So, Russ, any plans for any mods or anything that you want to do with the car?
Probably maybe look at doing some carbon fibre interior pieces around the gear console. Put some carbon door seals. Might put a carbon splitter back on, but depends on where I'm working at the minute. I work in construction, so it might not last very long.
But yeah,
nothing immediate really planned, really.
Just enjoying the car at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what have you got? What kind of tyres have you got on here? You've got Michelin Pilot Super Sports, back and rear. Yeah, so 19s on the front, and you got 19s on the back as well. Yeah. And this is obviously a non-competition model.
Yeah, just standard M4, yeah.
What does the comp add? Basically the M2 competition is a separate car from the M2 because it's got a new engine, different suspension. It's just completely, you know, the look is completely different. But with the M4 and the M4 competition, it's more like a pack. It is an M4 competition pack, so it's just got different wheels, a bit more power. Am I right in saying?
Yeah, that's wheels. I think it's about an extra 20 horsepower, I think.
Okay, so I'm going to do about 5 things between the two cars, and then hopefully that can kind of give a good understanding of, I guess, the viewpoint between the two. I've never been in an M4 before, so this is going to be my first experience. And if you saw the last video, first of all, thank you to everyone who commented. It's nice to know that people who had also come from an M140 or 240 feel the same about owning an M2 or M2 comp, about, you know, the torque. So I'm not the only one who kind of sits in that camp, so it's nice to know. Thank you guys, if you know where I'm at. So it's going to be interesting to sit in this M4 and kind of understand and feel how the torque and power delivery is what I've heard and what I talked about in that video. So yeah, we're going to be covering 5 things, the differences between the two. Obviously the new 4 Series has just come out, and then the new M4 is on its way. So these are obviously discontinued now, but yeah, it's going to be awesome to see what the new M4 is going to be like. So to just cover off this M4 at the moment, it's in, what was it, Yasmarina blue? It's absolutely stunning, this colour. It looks really interesting, like different next to the Long Beach Blue M2 comp, because this is more like metallic and kind of shines, whereas this is more of like a flat colour. But nonetheless, I think it looks mega. And when Russ was actually driving behind me, it looked really mean in the mirror. What have we got? So we've got 19-inch front and back, Michelin Pilot Super Sports, like I mentioned before. Interestingly, we've got a sunroof, so no carbon roof, but you know, everyone likes to put a carbon roof on their M3, M4s to less weight and stuff, but I actually don't think that Russ is, you know, like missing out on anything special here. He gets the benefit of extra light coming in through the top, and you know how much I love sunroofs, and I don't think that extra weight he's saving is really going to make much of a difference in a car this powerful. Like you mentioned, everything's stock, so just look at the udder, the exhaust. See how it just doesn't hang as ugly as that does? We'll be getting that changed soon, don't worry. He's also got carbon boot lip, which is nice, and this is a 2015 car, 2015, so this is no OPF. So sound is going to be very, very interesting with this, and I know that each M4 iteration where they kind of lifted it a little bit, they changed the kind of mapping of the car. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be like it's one of the very first M4s out there, so it's interesting to see where they've come in terms of the S55 engine. Do you mind if I pop the boot?
Yeah.
So let's just pop the hood. Look at Ross's engine here, and then we look at mine. So if we didn't already know, the big upgrade from the M2 to the M2 competition is that S55 engine that we have brought over from the M3 M4. So there you go, it looks exactly the same, but power is slightly different. We've got 410 bhp here, around about 430, 425. Both got 550 newton meters of torque. Like I mentioned, mapping and how the power is delivered is going to be very, very different. So first point I'm going to talk about is the price. So you can now get an OG M2 for about 25 grand on Auto Trader, first models 2016, and you get an OG M4 first iterations non-comp also for 25 grand. So which would you choose? Brand new, you can get an M2 competition for about 55 grand, and brand new you can get an M4 competition if they were still making them for about 65 grand. So is there a 10 grand, is the 10 grand worth it from the M2 to the M4? I'll let you decide. So back to my point, a lot of people talk about the M2 comp as being more nimble because it's kind of a smaller car. It's actually quite a heavy car. Now it is heavier than the old M2, but compared to the M4, it's only around about 20-40 kg more than the M4. And obviously with the extra power, I think they're probably going to be about the same. So again, I think this is going to be a very interesting comparison between the two cars. So just before Russ and I go for a drive and I hop in, I'm not insured, so I'm not going to be driving this car. He can take me for a spin. We'll get some sound clips and just listen to what non-OPF car versus an OPF exhaust with the ugly muffler. So it is already warm. Sheesh. I'll give mine a few revs as well. Stop that now before everyone gets angry at us. And we're gonna go for a little spin. Sound wise, they actually kind of sound the same. I think pushing on the M4 when you're driving, that's quite quiet when I'm driving, but I think driving this is gonna be a lot louder. First impressions in the M4, the space is a lot longer. I feel like I'm a lot closer and the cabin's a lot smaller. That's just a blank button in my car, but you've got active suspension in the M4, which is obviously something that you get as a plus when you pick up, an M4. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of handles and what the difference is going to be. Christ. So that pulls. That is that feels more powerful than the M2 comp. It feels like there's more torque lower down, which is, what confirms what my suspicions were. But that upshift is a bigger shove in the back than the comp is. I don't know how maybe they've changed the mapping of the DCT, but there's more of a shove in the back, more kind of like how Hurricanes when they shift, there's that big jump.
I quite like that. I know a lot of people hate it. I quite like it, but yeah, this feels a lot more powerful, a lot faster, even though on paper they're actually quite similar. I think if you don't have any friends like me, get an M2 Comp and you want to kind of have that nimble kind of driving feel. But if you want the kind of more luxury feel and the comfy of cruising, get an M4. It's going to be very interesting when the new M4 comes out, what that's going to be like. And these are going to be mega, great value for money on Auto Trader as well. So if you're looking at the two, it depends on what your kind of which one you fancy. I think for me, because no one really ever sits in the back of my car, and I like the kind of dynamic feel. I think an M2 Comp for me is more practical, but here for Russ, obviously an M4 fits his kind of driving style more. Yeah, that's quite an aggressive upshift.
Yeah, Paul's like compared to the 135,
Yeah, it's
still
kind of pull, isn't it?
There's not as much lag.
Yeah. It's a different kind of pull. Right, we're going to be giving Russ's first impression of an M2 Comp. First impression, it's shorter, isn't it? That seat is as far back as it goes.
Yeah, it definitely feels a lot more narrower. No, it's nice though.
It feels smaller in here in the cabin, doesn't it? So Russ's first pull in the M2 Comp. The shift is different, isn't it? It's not as aggressive.
Yeah.
It's thumping, but it's still there.
Do you think it's spooled like? Do you think it's mapped on the M4 where it sort of like accelerate? I think is it 0 to 60 slightly?
It's about the same.
Roughly about the same.
About the quicker, yeah. I think they mapped the power on the M4 where the torque is a lot lower.
Yeah.
And then obviously being more powerful, I think you get your power all the way. Whereas on the M2 Comp, they map the torque to come in a lot later, but at the top of the end of the rev range. There's not as much power, kind of flattens off.
It feels small, and it feels more sort of like the M1, like the 135, 140 kind of sort of width, sort of like the feeling you're sort of getting, like the interior. I don't know if the M4 sort of the interior feels, well for me it feels bigger than the previous 135, and it just feels slightly like the cockpit sort of seems a lot more, seems a bit not much more, but it does seem a bit more. Bit wider, that sort of feeling it sort of gives.
Yeah, I think when I go from my 140 to this, I think that's why it's kind of a bit underwhelming. It just feels a bit the same. I think even the size of the car feels a bit the same. So that's why from like the 140 to the M2 Comp, for me, it didn't really feel like it was much of a change.
What I've heard, I think the M2 competition is everything that the M2 was missing from the original design. I think. As I've heard like a few people saying that the M2 was great, but it was just missing that certain thing that sort of like hard to put like a feeling on. But I think that's where the M2 competition that's made up for it.
I think the changes that they made made it even more of like an M car than the M2 already was. They say it's like 10% better. So it's good that they didn't make it worse. They improved on it.
I think I noticed straight away is like the interior feels a bit smaller, sort of the width wise of compared to the M4. I think. I'm not sure on the exact stats of what the M2 Comp and the M4 are like in sort of like on the chassis, on the width of it. Obviously, if it's got a bigger chassis, then also you can have a slightly bigger interior. It's definitely a nice place to be in. I mean, like the contrast colours and stitching, and like the Alcantara door cards, which gives it a nice
So that's the end of the video. I hope you can hear me over the wind. Russ, thank you very much for giving me my first M4 experience. Appreciate it. If you could choose again, would you have an M2 comp or an M4? Which one would you pick?
I think I'd have to stick with the M4.
Stick with the M4, no, fair enough. It's a good choice. Obviously you would have bought the wrong car then. But yeah, thank you Russ, appreciate it. Have a good one.